So what was your sports dream?
Well, I grew up in upstate New York and always wanted to play college baseball in the South. That's where the best players are and that's where the best weather is. We have a lot of snow up there in Syracuse where I'm from. And so my dream was always make it to college, play ball, maybe get that shot at pro ball. I took a scholarship at Montevallo, which brought me down here to Alabama, and fell in love with Birmingham, fell in love with the South, and still live here 20 years later. Didn't get the pro ball shot, but coming down here, getting out of my comfort zone, playing college baseball really set the stage for a lot of what I did after baseball.
Didn't get the pro shot. How did that make you feel at the time?
I think it was pretty tough. I mean, most athletes, especially those who make it to the college level, find their identity in their craft. And then when it's over, it's like you've lost your identity. And I've seen that multiple times in business as well. You build a company, you're a founder of X brand, and then you sell or you exit, and you lose a little piece of yourself. And I lost a little piece of myself, but you learn a lot playing sports: leadership, character, perseverance, hard work. You can apply that into every role in your life, whether you become a dad like I have, a husband, especially in entrepreneurship.
Speaking of entrepreneurship, you flipped all that energy into gyms, and I guess I did all right.
Yeah, I mean, Iron Tribe Fitness is a place that I'm about to go to right after we get done with this interview. I'm not just a guy who helped build it, but I'm one of the longest tenured clients. I was part of the first gym in Homewood in 2010, and that's where I met Forrest Walden, who's been in the fitness business for decades now and had tons of success. And he was kind enough to give me a shot to partner up, and we built it from one gym to 47 gyms, which was a wild ride and fun for me to do from Birmingham, because we took that brand that started here in Homewood to Houston and Miami and Atlanta and really all over the Southeast, changing lives and impacting people, which is always fun.
Then you kind of moved on from that and started Influencer. What is the point of Influencer, and how does it help athletes with the goals?
Well, listen, I was fortunate during my time at Iron Tribe to meet somebody who was already a leader in the college sports world and learn about some of the key things going on. And in the mid-2010s, the Ed O'Bannon case was a hot topic. Ed O'Bannon decided to go after the NCAA for improper use of his name, image, and likeness, and won 9-0. And by winning, Ed O'Bannon really set the stage for what became this NIL movement today. So for me, getting bought out by my business partner, Forrest, and having the opportunity to build a business in 2017, well before NIL began, helping athletes with their social media at the pro level and the college level, with those teams being our clients, buying our software that provided athletes with access to content they could share to their Instagram, their Snapchat, their Twitter, etc. That was the beginnings of what became Influencer, the #1 software for NIL in 2021, because we already worked with all these athletes in schools. And so building payments solutions for NIL, building reporting and compliance solutions, tax solutions with our partner TurboTax, all the activity, hundreds of millions of dollars that's happening with NIL, really Influencer became the back office for the athletes in the schools with NIL, which really was an amazing opportunity for us.
So you didn't really represent athletes, individual athletes, you represented teams and colleges.
Yeah, tech company, no services, helping athletes through an app where they get access to content from the media, from their school. They can then share that content to their social platforms, grow their brand. And then more recently with NIL, we have an exchange feature where athletes can be found, communicated with, contracted with, and paid for NIL deals from collectives, brands, you name it. And so all of our money comes from either the college athletic program or the pro team. We work with college and pro teams here in America and in La Liga, English Premier League, Australian rugby, you name it, who use our software. So we're a software business, and that's why Teamworks, which is a sports tech titan really in the industry that every team uses, came and bought and acquired Influencer from me. And I stayed on board for a few years as CEO to keep building, but I've since exited.
Before we leave that, I went to Florida. I went to University of Florida with Emmitt Smith. And I remember him saying he was tweaked by the idea that he can't afford to go across the street from campus to the sports store and buy the jersey that has his name on it. So obviously this lack of resources for these players who make millions of dollars for the universities has been a problem for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a problem for a long time. And I think, The reality is a lot of people look at NIL as a fix to the problem because athletes are now able to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. The Emmitt Smith of today can make money off of his or her jersey being sold in the bookstore, along with many other ways that they're making money through collectives who have created these entities associated with the school but separate from the school to pay athletes for all kinds of appearance and autograph opportunities and other things like that. But the reality is NIL is revenue that happens outside of the revenue that is generated for the institution. So you look at Alabama football, and you look at Alabama football before Nick Saban, you look at Alabama football after Nick Saban, and you look at how much that's influenced enrollment at Alabama. More than half the student population in Alabama now is from out of state. People come from New York and LA for the party that is Alabama football. That's the effect that college football and college sports has. That's why for years it's been called the front porch of the university. It's how universities market itself. It's the reason that UAB made sure that they worked with Mayor Woodfin to get Protective Stadium built and bring back UAB football. Because while UAB is a medical hub, people need to know about UAB. And how do they know about it? Through college football. And so that is an important part of the higher education experience, and athletes, especially football, men's and women's basketball athletes, generate billions of dollars every year for all of these schools to be able to market themselves in that way.
What do you say to the fans who say this is ruining sports?
Well, I think, listen, college sports have evolved a lot, and I would say that before athletes started having opportunities like NIL, coaches started having opportunities to make massive salaries and get fired sometimes in as little as 2 or 3 years, getting massive severance packages or buyouts. There's more than $500 million right now being paid to fired coaches. Right down the street at Auburn, you have 2 coaches still getting paid this year, who are one of them coaching at another school, Gus Malzahn, another one not coaching at all. And then you have a third coach on payroll who's still coaching the team, right? And so coaching salaries, other types of investments made by the school to market and get students has really created this big business commercial aspect era of college sports. And the really only ones that haven't been sharing in that are the athletes that have helped generate it. So you have to get your head around that as a fan, that, the athletes are still coming last. Coaches have already won massively off of this. The schools have won massively off of this. And now the athletes are in the conversation of how can they share in this.
That brings us to athletes.org. And I believe it's a not-for-profit, correct?
Well, there's 2 sides to it. It's a not-for-profit players association, no membership dues. Athletes, Division 1, 2, 3, all 40 different sports can sign up for free, and they get on-demand support in all the places they now need it. Free legal, free accounting, free mental health resources. We have corporate partners that fund it and provide their services at no cost, pro bono, to our athlete members, providing them with this on-demand support aspect. That also includes a registry for agents that want to work with athletes, a registry for collectives that want to work with athletes, so we can hold them to a standard. But there's also a for-profit side, Athletes Inc. And just like the NFL Players Association has NFL Players Inc., and NFL Players Inc. generates money from the Madden video game and Panini trading cards and Fanatics jerseys for all the athletes in the NFL, Athletes.org has Athletes Inc. to generate revenue for groups of athletes based on their conference and their sport. And so we have chapters that are now beginning to roll out where you have athletes who play volleyball in the Big Ten, and they have their own Athletes.org chapter. Athletes who play basketball in the ACC, and they have their own Athletes.org chapter. These smaller groups, we can generate revenue for these athletes through group licensing, the same way as done at the pro level. But also, we want to give these athletes a voice with the leaders of their conference. Because just like O'Bannon foreshadowed NIL, Johnson versus the NCAA, House versus the NCAA, the National Labor Relations Board cases going on are foreshadowing a new future where athletes, to some degree, will have more of the gross revenue their school generates invested into them, whether it's through medical coverage, scholarship protections, or for some athletes, revenue sharing. That's just the future, and I didn't create it. I'm creating a solution to help athletes sit at the table to negotiate the future with the leaders of their sport and their conference.
Sounds like unionization.
Well, athletes aren't employees, so there really is no need for a union. There's a lot of red tape with unions, especially if athletes were employees of their schools. A lot of those schools are public. They're in states that have laws against their employees unionizing. So to get around that and to just get the athletes to organize and start to get their perspective and consensus around these issues stated in a certain way where it can be represented in these conversations is what athletes.org is about, along with generating revenue for them, offering them support. And so it's not unionization in its traditional form. It's not collective bargaining in its traditional form, but there is an association organizing athletes, and there is an opportunity for athletes, if they organize inside of athletes.org, to start a negotiation conversation with the leaders in their conference around these key issues. And here's the most important thing. If the leaders of college sports don't embrace athletes.org and the spirit of athletes organizing and start to have a conversation with athletes about all these key issues to create an alternative path for the future of college sports, these court cases are going to be decided. And if you look back, the NCAA's lost their last few cases 9-0. They're probably going to lose the House case. They're probably going to lose the Johnson case. They're probably going to lose these NLRB cases that may force employment status for all athletes in college sports, which could be good or bad for some athletes depending on what they're going to take on liability-wise if they become employees, such as paying taxes on their tuition and getting a reallocation of benefits. It might not be a good thing. And so for other athletes, it might be a great thing because of how much revenue that they generate. But employment is a big issue of the future in college sports, and college sports leaders embracing athletes.org could create an alternative path to employment to create a real revenue sharing opportunity for athletes who generate revenue to participate in that.
Why do you think it took so long to get to this point that the NCAA is kind of vulnerable right now?
I think it's a lot of different things. I think that, there is a tendency when you have such a big industry with so many eyeballs, so many fans that care about it or are tied to their schools based on it being their alma mater or it being where they're from. You have so much money being generated to help the school market itself and grow enrollment, as we talked about earlier, but also to create a real business for a lot of these schools that's big business. And when it's been done a certain way for so long, it's hard for those that are in leadership to just change it. And I have a lot of empathy, especially for athletic directors and commissioners, because they're not really in charge, the presidents are. And they have to get the presidents to get it behind them on any sort of pioneering or innovation. And that's not easy to do in a century-old industry that's evolved to this big business that it is. But we've got to stop saying it's all about academics and it's all about higher ed. I love academics, I love higher ed, but the reality is commercialization has happened. And hundreds of millions of dollars a year are being made by the biggest schools. And that's why these court cases have come to fruition. And so, just like the music industry, the record label execs woke up one morning and all of a sudden, CDs were not going to be a thing of the future anymore because people were file sharing. And they could have embraced that. One record label exec could have said, you know what? Let's buy Napster and use their technology to be the first label to stream. And we'll help our artists make money digitally. Instead, for 10 years, they fought Napster in court, and it took Steve Jobs and Jimmy Iovine to figure out what became Apple Music so we could figure out how to monetize music digitally. We've got to do the same thing with college sports. This is the situation we're in. What are we going to do to create the future in an equitable manner that's fair for all?